You're listening to the Who is Christine Anyway podcast season 2. Today's special guest is author, educator, and generally really nice guy, Tom Guzzio. Enjoy.
Once you leave the area, it kind of just, it's kind of like, oh my God, I've seen the light. Like, it's like, I get it now. And then when you kind of full spectrum back on it, it was interesting. So it was, I guess, like even now though, when I go into classes, I think I see glimmers of the things in the way that you taught. And I kind of, I think it sunk in a lot more than you thought. Like, and in a weird way, it's interesting. And it's like I was in the Independent Music Conference last year, IMC, and I took a whole class on the emotional self and how music will, these different things and how music affects and how to understand artists and their mentality and their brains and their, lyricists and every part of an artist, which is an entire person. And one of the books they had us read, I think I have it here, it's The Creative Act, A Way of Being. And it's like at Target. I'm like, okay. I read it and I just loved it. It teaches you that you have to learn patience. It was so easy. The Creative Act.
I have that.
You have to have it. It looks like this.
No, I do not have that.
Yeah.
I read a really interesting book about creativity by Questlove, which was.
Have you read the
awesome.
Wu-Tang? Saw has one from the Wu-Tang Clan too. That's really good.
Oh, really?
But it talks about different things in here. Like one of the sections in here, the artist actively works to experience life slowly and then re-experience the same thing anew, to read slowly and to read and read again. And it's all for like, it's not wrong. And that's deep. And it's one of those things where it's like, wow, Target, you got that right and snatching that up. But it was a really good find. It was a really good find through the Independent Music Conference. And it really does, you have to really open your perspectives to stuff. And that was something you really kind of taught. And I think definitely that episode of The Simpsons you made us watch kind of made me realize that, like, oh, wow, okay, this isn't just a cartoon, there's perspective. And now, like I said, going back to that again, going into the music industry, it's been really interesting because when the halftime show happened, I was able to snap up so many cultural things just by visually reading. That's the term. Not, reading in an auditory sense, not in a word sense. Like I'm going through it and I'm like explaining it. And I'm like everything down to the car. That's an 87. That's one model like this. It's climbed all the way down to the PlayStation Road, to this, to that. Like there was so much artistry in it. And people just go, well, we don't understand it. And I'm like, because you're not questioning it.
No.
You're not asking why. And it's just, I owe you such an infinite thank you. I really do.
Well, you're welcome. And hopefully this doesn't knock me down a peg, but I didn't watch the halftime show.
No, it is. It's one of those things where you didn't have to, if you ever get, I think it's like, first of all, I always do for the simple fact of the production of it. It takes them, of course I have to. You have 7 minutes to get the stuff on the stage. I mean, on the field, 7 minutes. Yeah. That's it. Get everything out there. You cannot mess up the turf. Everybody in place, everything working, no questions. And then at the end, you have 6 minutes and 30 seconds from the final note to get that entire field cleaned completely off without having any damage. That is an act of, that's a feat. So I love watching it. Yeah, that's insane. And you'll realize, and I'm going to go ahead. I'm not really into the sports balling, but I was laughing because one of the facts I realized is that during that show, Kendrick actually ran more yards than the Chiefs did the entire game. It was one of my favorite facts. And they're like, they show his path and they're calculating it. And I'm like, holy crap, like that is not cultural or anything, but that is hilarious. But it wasn't, I don't think that was part of it, but there's so many pieces to it that culturally fit into it. And I really think that if you hadn't taught me to question a lot of the things and, that it was okay to be different. Like I really did settle into being okay being different. Like I walked into your class and it'd be like, there's it. Like, who cares? And I would just sit down. Like I don't even care anymore. I'm just sitting down. Like, what the fuck ever. Like, it was one of those things. I didn't sleep maybe I slept during the movies. I don't know. I know I didn't do much homework. I don't remember if I ever turned in an essay to you that you were like, this is memorable. I think I was pretty low radar in terms of that, but who knows?
Yeah, but we would have conversations and stuff. Like you
Mhm.
would pay attention. So like that was it's funny because I would talk a lot in those classes. Probably more so than I do now because like little baby teacher's like, okay, I've got to fill this time. How the hell am I going to do it? And
Pop open the
and
soapbox.
if I'm not interesting, these people are going to fucking go nuts. So I would
They
talk
were
a lot,
already going that way.
and but like you weren't like you weren't a pillow. You weren't a plant breathing breathing in and breathing out and not contributing anything. You had your moments where you had a pulse.
Yeah, I mean, I do love the conversation part of things. I always have, but there was always that hesitation. Like, especially if I would go too deep, because the second you start going too deep in that pond, per se, the heads turn. Like, you can hear the snapping of the necks as all the heads turn towards you, and like, the dirty looks begin. It's just kind of one of those things. But
Yeah.
it was something that definitely translated into my writing, and it continued to translate into my writing, and it continued to translate into, like, especially now, because like I host, hosting panels and teaching and all these other things that I do now, which is probably weird to say. The girl that never passed my class teaches and is an author. Like,
No, I
you
failed my
can't
last quarter of high school English.
you can't quantify the quality of a person by a number system. You
Well,
can't.
and who they were in high school does not define who they'll be as an adult.
It
And
took me a long
again,
time to learn boundaries. It took me a long time to really learn those boundaries. Even now, I still do have my moments where I struggle going back into Saranac Lake. Just because it's like I always want to be accepted. I want home to take me in, and it just falls short sometimes. Or if you don't continue to perform like a circus monkey, they'll just
Mhm.
kind of like you're either greatly loved or greatly forgotten about. And it's just one of those things where it's had its moments. It's just one of those things where I had to actually snap out. It took me 2 years to get a concert into that town. And there was a lot of moments where I had to call other industry professionals who were just like, Christine, this is just a job. This is a job. And I'm like, but you don't understand. I was like, it was so internalized that I had lost my critical thinking skills. I really had lost my critical thinking skills. So when there was like a brief period where I had I won't say downtime, but like there was like a moment where it was quiet, like where there's silence, I got those critical thinking skills back and I'd come back with another plan for it. But I was able to kind of get my wits about me. And I was like, okay, what the hell am I thinking? Well, who cares what this person thinks? But then as soon as I jumped back into that pool, it was almost like it was gone again. Like it's just like that. I think I'm always going to have that forever yearning to want to be part of that. And I don't think I'm ever going to be.
But you
I think I'm
are.
going to be a firebrand somewhere else.
But here's the thing, though. Like, you are part of that. You know, you, um, not the way you wanted to be a part of it, but you wouldn't be the person you are today if you had grown up in any other place.
That's accurate.
And I think, Christine, it's time for you to make peace with your past in Saranac Lake.
I know.
But here's what I mean by that. Here's what I mean by that. So
I've been really, I think I made peace with it. Like I've been trying to in different ways. And it's weird because it's like, I go, okay, we're going to move forward to a different place. And it's almost like walking by, what I would imagine the 15th century royalty walking out of a church, and there's the homeless there going, "Oh, I'm for the poor, I'm for the poor." They're like, and they're grasping and they're pulling. And it's just kind of like, feel like I have such a responsibility to do this. But at the same time, I know that the reason that I did it was because I felt that innate responsibility. And if I already am that, then nobody else is going to step up and become that.
Right.
Like, it's very odd. Like, as soon as I started doing the music thing in that town, Christina had come back to me and she's like, well, doesn't it bother you? Somebody else is doing it? And I'm like, no, it's great. Like, good. More competition, lower market, less fees. Like, let's just, it's just it's the perspective of thinking like, I don't have time to be jealous over what's going on at the barbecue festival. I just don't. I'm over here. I have 12 children's books. I have a memoir. I have classes. I have kids. I have things I'm doing. It's such a different world, I guess. And you're right. I don't think I would be who I am if it wasn't for a lot of the things I went through in that town. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of that unresolved. And maybe that'll change when the memoir comes out. Maybe that's what it needs to be, is that catharsis.
And everybody could use a little catharsis. So my journey lately has been, and this happened because of my daughter. This happened because of you reach a point in your life where, oh my God, that sounded really bad.
I'm going with it. It's okay. You're like my dad.
So it's like this. I was always somebody who looked at. I would frame the person I am today in light of what I survived, and I would always say things like, I am the person I am today in spite of, who my parents were, in spite of the things that I experienced that were negative. And I had to learn to let all that shit go and start focusing on those few moments that I experienced that were positive. And I'll give you a perfect example. My dog, Sam. I wrote an essay about Sam called Strays. I had Sam maybe for about a year. And it wound up being the classic boy and his dog, it'll end in tears sort of story. Sam was a badass. I literally lured Sam away from a feral pack. Like, my sister had a dog. I took some of her dog food, went out to the yard. It was like, here, puppy, here, puppy. 10 minutes later, the dog was like, yeah, okay, I can get with this. In less than a year, I had to give that dog up. That narrative was so dominating, that narrative of loss, that I let it completely overshadow everything that was good about having Sam. Until I went to therapy, had a good therapist that kind of helped me reframe that whole situation. Now, here's how sad and pathetic my relationship with Sam was, or my memory of my relationship with Sam was. There was this cheesy ass 70s song called Sad Eyes. And every time I'd hear this song, it must have come out right around the time I had to get rid of this dog. Because every time I'd hear that song, I'd automatically see Sam in the back of that truck and him driving away down the street, me never seeing him again, and I would freaking lose it. If that song came on when I was in your class, I would have to excuse myself and leave the room. And when I started thinking differently about how having this dog in my life for the short time that I had him paved over the pothole of my loneliness and gave me this incredible gift, even for a short time, it totally reframed how I saw that part of my life. It allowed me to cut my mom some slack because she let me keep that dog, which she could barely afford to feed us. And now when I hear that song, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
So I guess, if you wrote an essay for my now defunct website about how you were the one that got away. But it wasn't really about you getting away from Saranac Lake. It was about the things you did in Saranac Lake, right? That you evidently worked out when you were in school suspension.
Gotta waste the time somehow.
That gave you a springboard. And I think if you went back and looked at those things and focused on those things a little more, you wouldn't need to impress anybody there, because you would see that you've internalized the things that you've needed to be successful, to be who you are. Shit. you wouldn't have a memoir to write, at least one that's probably not as interesting as yours is going to be, if it weren't for that weird, that Ferd Wives ass village that you and I both kind of found ourselves on the outside looking in.
Keep listening for the next part of this episode with Tom Guzzio. Visit www.whoischristineanyway.com for access to all the social media links and additional podcast episodes.